disrupted.
Welcome to the Author Spotlight. On this episode, we're talking to Cale Lewis and his book, The Red Pill in the Universal Matrix. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, yeah. Why don't you let us know why we should read your book?
Yeah, I'll just give you a little background about myself.
Sure.
I'm someone who was raised here in Canada and went through the education system and went through university and had parents that steered me in a particular direction. And I would say that direction was the world is a very materialistic place. So it's a nuts and bolts reality where I was very much passionate about getting good grades and doing well in competing in a society. So I was very, what you would say, closed-minded. So up until I was about 48 years old, I believed in nothing except science, materialism. Anybody who mentioned anything to do with UFOs or ghosts or anything that was not what I had learned in the education system, those people were A, crazy, B, trying to make money by inventing a story, or C, on some type of drugs. That was just the way I was. I was very much someone who didn't believe in anything to do with the supernatural. But then some things happened in my life where I had to start questioning that belief system. And then some more things happened in my life where I had no choice but to kind of throw away that belief system because of the experiences that I had personally. So when the supernatural starts presenting itself in your life, you were given personal experiences. You can't question that. You can't equate it to someone on drugs. You can't say that I was trying to make money for myself. I wasn't. It was just something that I was going through and experiencing. And fortunately, in my case, as I was going through those, I'm someone who, as I've gone through life and important things have happened, I've taken a journal of those happenings. So I was able to record those happenings relatively quickly after they happened. I did not ever think that I would be writing a book, but I was just recording it because I was trying to figure things out. And my job in real life is I'm a research analyst. So I went to university and I took marketing and I took courses in research, and I knew that as soon as I took my first market research course, I knew that was something that I wanted to do, because I'm kind of geared towards statistics and probability, and I go through life kind of evaluating, well, what are the chances of this? I'm a big poker player, and I evaluate everything in terms of likelihood and averages and the normal curve. And when things started going a little bit different for me, I'm in my mind, I'm evaluating in those terms, until it got to a point where I had no choice but to say, this is, there's something different about this reality than I was brought up and what I was educated for. I'm sure you might have heard of the term synchronicity.
Yes.
Yes,
of course.
You're familiar with
I'm a big synchronicity person.
Okay.
I tell people, I just said to someone in the book club, I'm like, I cannot believe you just said that to me. I literally just said that to someone last week. Like, this means we're on the right path. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had no idea what the term synchronicity meant. But my life at a certain point started to be completely loaded with synchronicities, and eventually that word was put before my path, and I started to recognize, okay, well, so these are coincidences that are so unlikely, that are providing me with messaging, you know, providing me personally with, you know, kind of a path to follow. That I became a huge advocate of the word synchronicity, because I believe that the synchronicities in my life. I'll just give you this. I quit drinking about 13 years ago. At that point, you know, that I had been a problem drinker for, you know, since I was a teenager, so decades.
Mhm.
When I finally figured out that I wasn't going to be able to get control over my drinking, about it was actually my birthday, so I quit drinking in October 1st. I've been sober for 25 days, and I was starting to you know, get frustrated, or you know, when you quit drinking, because that has been such a big part of your life. You know, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to quit. So I was reading a book to my daughter, frustrated because it was a Friday night, and I'm like, what am I going to do with my social time at this point? You know, how am I going to?
Right.
And I ended up throwing the book towards I guess she would have been about 7 or 8 year old daughter, and I'm like, read it yourself. And right at that moment, my other daughter knocked on the window. She was out in our hot tub with my son, and my son had seen an owl in a tree at that point. So I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's an owl in the tree. The next day, through different sources, I had 5 other owls come into my reality. So in a span of 2 days, I had all these owls, and it you know, it made not actual live owls, but owls that came through on a Facebook feed. You know, my kid's
Mhm.
drawing that he did at preschool was an owl. Both my daughters picked books that had owls in them. I went out to a bar, and the waitress was wearing a metallic owl. Um,
Right.
that type of coincidence made me take note. The reason that was important was because when my father, who passed away, he was buried at a place in a town near us, and my kids never got a chance to meet my father. When
Mhm.
we went to the gravesite for the very first time, there was an owl sitting above his gravesite in the middle of the day, a huge owl. And so we visited the gravesite, and there was an owl. It didn't fly away. So unbeknownst to me, here I am as my research analyst mindset. Uh, I did not know at the time that that owl was going to become a symbol for my father in this reality. But what ended up happening was, as I went through the process of quitting drinking, every single time I faced a new challenge, like, you know, we're going to be attending a party that evening, somehow an owl would come into my path within a couple of hours of going to that
Wow.
party. Or yeah, so it was quite an experience, and that was kind of my first introduction to the reality being something other than just what I had believed. You know, we had evolved from a spark in an underwater sea, a crystal growing or something like that. I realized there was something different about the reality through that. And then I quit drinking, and the owls kind of dissipated. I didn't need them. They lasted for like about a year. I'm wearing my owl today, and
Nice. I like it.
yeah, and then my life continued on, and everything was normal, and then in 2021, I guess, I was watching 60 Minutes. I used to watch the news back then. I don't watch it anymore, but 60 Minutes, and they were interviewing U.S. Pilots and the assistant to the Secretary of Defense, and they were talking about UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. So, and
Mhm.
they showed videos of these crafts that are in the sky above the Navy ships that are traveling 10 times faster than any known vehicles. And so from that show, I came out of watching that show believing that there is a higher intelligence that's created some sort of vehicles that are interacting with us on a regular basis. Before that, I had zero belief that that was even possible. I watched that show
Right.
and I learned that that is a possibility. I am the type of person. I grew up with a telescope. I took, astronomy in high school when I didn't have to. I took earth science, which had astronomy.
Yeah.
I was always someone who had a very big interest in the stars and that was something that I just was very interested in. So when I found out that there is some sort of intelligence that's interacting with us, I was extremely interested in that. It was like a passion was uh, ignited under me that I did not know I had. I began to study everything I could get my hands on to that effect. All the books that have been written, podcasts, movies, everything about it was interesting to me. So during that period of time, this was about 2022, I essentially went into what would be termed like a spiritual awakening because I was so
Mhm.
filled with passion and I had so much interest in that topic. I didn't need as much sleep. I was constantly, I had so much information that I needed to take in because unbeknownst to me this whole time there's been people that have been studying and documenting interactions with this thing they call the phenomenon. And there's been what's something called like the invisible college, which is a group of professors and very smart people who have been studying it, but they can't publicize that because it was shunned by the US government for whatever reason. The US government has pushed it under the rug and made people that talk about it appear to be kooky, and that's been
Yeah.
their kind of their stance, which is changing now, but that's why people like me believe that everyone who talked about it was crazy, but um, it turns out that they're not crazy, and it turns out there's a lot of very smart people who have invested their whole life in studying it because it's most likely they've had interactions themselves. It's motivating. So I'm someone who hadn't had any sort of interaction with UFOs. All I had was the knowledge that I had gained from reading and from listening to the people
Yeah.
on podcasts and so forth. Then the reality started presenting UFOs to me. So, I spend the first 48 years of my life with no beliefs. I then
Yeah.
generate beliefs, and then all of a sudden, the reality is presenting UFOs to me, and I have no choice but
Wow.
to start trying to figure out how this could possibly be. How could I stand outside and ask for a presentation of the phenomenon, and then an orb will appear exactly where I'm looking and travel through the sky and disappear? How is my consciousness connected to the reality? Am I that important? I don't think so. Through a series of other things that occurred to me, I came to the very quick conclusion that the reality that we live in is not a nuts and bolts reality. It is consciousness is real, but
Yeah.
everything else is just like a holographic presentation, like we are in a video game. Simply because of the
Or the Matrix.
or the Matrix. Yeah, I mean the Matrix, absolutely. I don't. The thing about the Matrix is in that movie they present the human beings in the pods in the other reality. I don't have that belief. I believe that there's a tremendous intelligence that has created this reality, and we are all small fractals of that intelligence. So, the way I picture it is that there's a and we're in that process right now. We are very close to giving birth to something that will be infinitely smarter than all humans combined, artificial general intelligence. So that we're within a couple of years of giving birth to that tremendous intelligence. And then a lot of other people have used to be they would say it would happen by 2040. Now most of the people are saying it's very likely to happen before 2030. And that's where, that's where
Sure.
the computers become so smart that they're reprogramming themselves, and we quickly become ants as far as intelligence goes to this super intelligence. I see that line of giving birth to super intelligence, this artificial general intelligence. It's corresponding to the efforts that are happening with disclosure. So on the disclosure side, as far as the government, admitting that they have crafts and beings and so forth, it is ramping up. There's a congressional hearing that's happening in the United States on November 13th, and they will be interviewing Luis Elizondo, who has just recently published a book called Imminent. And this will be a tremendous step towards waking up the masses. There's people like me who are very well, read on the what is and what isn't as far as that topic goes. But a majority of people, it's not a topic that they'll even entertain, because it's just too far from whatever reality they're living in. So disclosure, short of a ship landing on the White House lawn and it being videotaped and interacting with people, disclosure's got to
Mhm.
happen a little bit more gradually. And I believe that we're headed down a path that is corresponding and correlating with the advent of artificial general intelligence. So I don't think it's a coincidence that we've been on this earth for, let's say, 4 billion years. And at a certain point in the very near future, we're going to be uh, giving birth to artificial general intelligence. And at a certain
Yeah.
point in the very near future, we are going to be meeting our higher intelligent, whatever they are, right?
Yeah.
Something is correlating, or something is interacting with us that appears to be of higher intelligence. And I think that perhaps my theory is that perhaps that the game is introducing a higher intelligence to match the artificial general intelligence that we're giving birth to. So humans won't be able to keep the artificial general intelligence in check. It's just, we just won't be able to understand. But if the game introduces something else at the same time, maybe they will. That's my theory.
And and if people read your book who don't know anything about this, you kind of detail, like,
Absolutely.
summarize everything that you've learned and read about and all that kind of stuff. It's like a
Absolutely.
summary of, okay,
Yeah.
great.
So my book is kind of a transition of someone who goes from being non-spiritual to someone who is exposed to a whole bunch of weird things in this reality that make it clear that I end up with that mindset. So it's a kind of a transformation of how I could how someone could do that. And my goal in writing it or publishing it was simply to open the minds of people that read it. If I open up 20 minds, then it was worth it, right? Now,
Awesome.
not
Yeah.
everyone is going to believe everything that I have to say in my book. But what I've done is I've kind of had a track record of opening people's minds. Like, for instance, I was at a conference and I told people at the conference that the night before I had gone out and I had seen a red orb in the sky. And I was in a room of about 30 people. And, um, a lot of them would have been like, holy crows, this guy's crazy. But some of them didn't. And we were staying overnight. And about an hour later, I had a lady come in from the driveway. She's ecstatic. She's like, Cale, you got to get out here. You got to get out here. And she's standing out on the driveway and she's looking at what she could describe as a triangular red craft, three lights, red up by Orion's belt. That was her first presentation of the phenomenon. It's the first thing she's ever seen in her life. Now, it's not a coincidence that I had disclosed what I had seen the night before to the group. She went outside, she asked the universe for a presentation, and the universe delivered to her. I believe that, just by presenting information in a way that is, acceptable to people, and they believe that I'm not a crazy person, it opens people's minds, and it allows the reality to present something to them that that is unique, or perhaps the first time. And over the past 2 or 3 years, I've had so many people come up to me because I've presented an open mind towards these topics. It turns out that I'm surrounded by people that have had presentations of the phenomenon, who've seen actual physical crafts in the sky at some point during their life. And they've sat on that information, not broadcasting it to people, because it's like you're taking a chance of being perceived as crazy. But because
Yeah.
I've kind of presented an I'm not crazy, and I've presented an open mind, they will then see me as someone they can share their story with. So it turns out that in
You're
my reality,
safe.
yeah, and it turns out in my
You're a
reality,
safe person. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I'm surrounded by people who've had interactions with something, and some of the stories are absolutely incredible. And we're not talking like I'm not going out of my way to find people. These are like other parents on my kids' basketball teams, or my basketball or the basketball coach, or the like my poker club. It turns out I'm sitting beside two guys who've seen physical crafts in their background. It's like it's presented to people all over the place, and why is it presenting to everybody? Well, there's got to be a reason. They're opening people's minds to something that might be in our near future. That's my opinion.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Have you
I
ever
love
seen
it.
anything in the sky?
I have. So I saw once, well, I saw one time I saw something and I thought I was seeing something, but it was Elon Musk's Stargate, his
Oh yeah, the
Stargate.
Starlink. Yeah.
um, oh yeah, Starlink, the Starlink.
Yes.
But I did see one time, it was like a flash and then it was gone and it was super bright. And I was on the
Yes.
balcony and my family was inside and I was like, did you guys see that? And they're like, no,
Yes.
what? And I was like, oh, what is that? I was doing the thought. I was like, oh, okay.
That
But it was a
right there.
flash.
What you're telling me right there is completely synchronistic and completely amazing. And in my book,
Mm-hmm.
one of the main thing that's happened to me is exactly what you just described. That flash in the
Oh,
sky.
look at that.
So the first time that happened, I was actually at a ski hill. I had taken my kids up. They were downhill mountain biking, and I went out because it was nice and dark, and I was looking for UAPs, and I was asking the sky, can I have a presentation of the phenomenon? Right where I'm looking, exactly what you just described. A huge flash. It's like an explosion of light,
Yeah,
but then it just disappears. There's
it
no
was like that.
explanation for that presentation. So that was the first time that I noticed that, and I journaled about it. And it happened about, I don't know, 5 more times. Then my daughter came to me and said, Dad, I saw this explosion of light right where I was looking, just like it happened to you. And I said, wow, you saw that too? Like, I was like, whoa, that's really cool. Then my daughter and I are sitting on our balcony one night looking up what we thought was an orb, whether it was a satellite or an orb, not sure. The explosion of light happens right where we're both looking, and we look at each other and I'm like, that was it. That was the explosion of light. Yes, we both saw it. So
That's
we
so
both saw it.
great.
Yeah. And then this is kind of like this funny that you said that, because this is kind of like probably one of the most incredible glitches in the matrix that we came across this year. We were camping in a non-populated area, which is sometimes very important for presentations of the phenomenon. You don't want to open up too many minds at once. So if you're in a lower population area, you're much more likely to have something appear in the sky that you can't explain. Anyway, everybody went to bed. We were camping. My daughter and I were still up. Same daughter who's perhaps had the most presentations in line with me. Her mind is maybe as open as any of my kids. We go and we're like, okay, well, let's go look at the stars. Let's go look at some orbs. So we go off and we position ourselves on a picnic table away from the campground. It was extremely dark. And we lied there for about 15 minutes looking at orbs and talking. And I then have the thought that comes into my mind. And I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we saw one of those explosions of light right now? Right on the word explosion, exactly where I'm looking, the explosion of light happens for Sydney and I, looking right when I said the word explosion. And
Wow.
then I
Love
say,
it.
okay, well, that was weird. And then I was like, 1, 2, 3, explosion. Boom, right in the exact same spot, explosion again. Then she kicks in. We both say 1, 2, 3, explosion. It happens again. And we continue to say it. It lost it, but it did it 3 times in a row. So the sky was reacting
Wow.
to our consciousness. And
Very
to
cool.
me, that was like the most incredible. And the fact that we had both of us witnessing it,
Yes,
multiple
that's the
witnesses.
key.
Yeah, yeah.
Having
So
someone else there to be like, did you see that? And like,
yeah,
ah,
so that's a huge, and I love the fact that you brought that up, because that's a hard one to explain to people. Like an explosion of light, what do you mean? Like, but yeah, it's happened
but I know what you mean.
to my friend
Yeah.
Peggy. Peggy has also
Oh,
seen the
my friend
explosion
too.
of light. Yeah, yeah. So
Has she?
yes, she has.
I, sh-
Yeah.
I should have talked
So
to her about it
before
then.
you, before you, I had 3 people who'd witnessed it, like myself. That was my daughter,
Oh,
Peggy, and now you. And that's a synchronicity.
that is because she's my friend. That's how you're in this interview. That's
Yeah,
awesome. I love that.
yeah. That
Actually, so this is actually all the time we have,
okay. Yeah,
unfortunately.
that's fine. That's a very good
Um,
end of it.
but that's amazing. I love it. So, for our listeners, if you'd like to pick up Cal's book, you can go to the Book Interrupted website at www.bookinterrupted.com/shop. And underneath the author spotlight, you'll see Cal's book, and you can pick it up there. And yeah, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on the show.
you.
And thank you so much for kind of
Really
like
appreciate it.
qualifying my flash of light. I love
Yes.
it. I love it so
Yeah.
much.
That's a very good presentation. All right. Well, thanks a lot. Thank you for
Yeah, that's
having me.
great.
Hopefully we'll meet one day.
Thank you. Yes, that would be
Bye-bye.
so nice.
See
Thanks
ya.
for being on the show.
If you've enjoyed these video highlights, listen to the full episode on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to like and subscribe and ring that bell to be notified when new episodes are published. Find out more by going to www.bookinterrupted.com.
And we're gonna talk it out on Book
On Book Interrupted.
Interrupted.